right, I think we can go ahead and get started. Welcome everybody to Belong at Brown, across the globe. We've got a number of wonderful folks from Brown I want to introduce you to and some housekeeping items I want to cover. So if we go to the next slide, we can get started. Let's get started with some introductions. I'll go first. My name is Victoria Bray. I am the Associate Director of Graduate Enrollment at Brown University, and I'll hand it over to Sydney to introduce herself.
Sydney actually just messaged me saying that she lost power. She lives in Florida and due to the hurricane, she is out of power.
No worries. Sydney's a great resource. She's our application specialist who deals with the financial certification process and visa process really closely with our applicants. In her stead, I'll have June introduce herself next.
Thank you so much, Victoria, and thank you to everyone who's joining us today. I was looking forward to this panel. My name is June Spencer, and I'm the program manager in Global Brown. I work very closely with incoming scholars, and I help with taxes and tax filing resources, and I'm a liaison to all the resources and supports that are available at Brown through the international umbrella. I'll hand it over to Andrew.
Hello, everyone. My name is Andrew Heald. I am the director of the Global Brown Center for International Students. You'll hear a little bit more from me a little bit later about what that means and what we do on campus. But essentially, we hope to create a home away from home for our international community. So really excited to be here and start sharing what that looks like and means for us. And then Sydney, I see you're back. Can I turn it over to you?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Andrew. Hi, everyone. I'm Cindy Thomas. I'm an admissions specialist with the School of Professional Studies.
And then Sharanya, you want to go next?
Yeah, thank you, Victoria. Hi, everyone. I'm Sharanya. I'm a second-year master's student here at Brown at the Department of Physics. I work with the Division of Masters in Professional Programs as the Graduate Assistant for Master's Student Engagement. And I also work with the Graduate Student Council as I'm the Chair of International Advocacy. So I'm here to answer any questions that you might have about living at Brown, how it is, and how you find your community, and any other questions that you might have. So yeah, thank you.
Fantastic. We're so grateful to have all of you. So a couple of items that I want to cover on the agenda. You can see on the left sort of the items that we're going to talk about today. Your questions really drive this conversation, so we want to hear from you. Please use the Q&A function on your Zoom toolbar to ask your questions, and we'll get to them during the session. If we feel like the broader community will benefit from the answer to that question, then we might save it till the end for a panel discussion. That being said, let's go to the next slide, and I will hand things over to Sydney to talk about the application requirements.
All right, awesome, Victoria. Thank you. You can go to the next slide also, Bryce. So we'll start with the English language proficiency requirement. So the TOEFL or IELTS is required for anyone who is both a non-native English speaker and who did not receive a degree from an institution where English was the sole language of instruction. So the example is Victoria's native language is Italian. She received her bachelor's degree from an institution in Italy, but the curriculum was taught in both English and Italian, so she would be required to submit an English language test. A different type of example would be you're a non-native English speaker, but you either received a degree from a school in the United States or from an institution outside of the United States, but English was the sole language of instruction. You would be exempt from this requirement. And you can indicate this within your application in the academic history section. We do accept all these listed versions of the TOEFL, and it lists our school code as well, 3094. I did also want to note that if you are required to submit one of these tests, we do require official test scores to be sent to Brown. And we do recommend for the majority of our master's programs, for the TOEFL, the minimum is 90, and for IELTS, the minimum is 7. But I do recommend just double checking your program specific requirements, as some programs do have more rigorous standards. So do double check their websites before you apply. You go to the next slide. The other application requirements. So for the GRE, Some programs do require the GRE, but several others do not. So again, double checking your program specific requirements is really important. And we do also require official GRE scores if you are submitting them. We do require unofficial transcripts in English at the time of application. Unofficial transcripts is totally fine. It's not until you're offered admission and you choose to enroll at Brown that we would then require an international credential evaluation if you attended school outside of the US. If you attended school in the US, then we would just require final official transcripts. There are a handful of other requirements for master's programs that could be program specific. Most programs do require a resume, for example, but it kind of varies for things like personal statement, as some programs may not even accept personal statements and require short answer questions instead, or there may be a general personal statement prompt versus a more specific one. So definitely double checking the websites is very important, but also feel free to email us if there are specific concerns. We go to the next slide. All right, so moving on to visa and immigration information. For these next couple of slides, just wanted to point out that
Whoop, looks like we might have lost Sydney again. No worries. So I just want to sort of jump in where she left off in the visa and immigration information. So one of the most important parts of this slide is really that if you are admitted to one of our in-person residential programs, which is sort of what the focus of this presentation is about, you're going to be required to receive a F1 visa. So some of the materials that you'll need for that visa process are listed on this slide. So financial evidence is an important component of that, a copy of your passport, your admission letter. Really, we're going to work with you closely and individually based off of your individual circumstances. Immigration is a really sort of case-by-case issue. So we want to make sure that we're serving you specifically, but this is sort of a high-level overview of what the visa and immigration process might look like. We have another office at Brown, the Office of International Student and Scholar Services. We work really closely with them on making sure that you have advising on immigration and visa issues, things like work permission. Those are all important aspects of your visa because, you know, you get the visa, you come to campus, but you still have a lot of rules that you're going to have to follow to maintain that immigration status. So the Office of International Student and Scholar Services is a really excellent resource for you. Once you're a matriculated student, we'll work with you on the lead up to becoming a matriculated student and making sure that you have that clarification on the financial certification process, the I-20, and those sorts of things. Do any of my other folks on the call want to add anything here?
I could jump in about OISSS. We call it OISSS, the Office of International Student and Scholar Services. And they have directors or assistant directors rather that are dedicated just to master's level students. So all of your questions are really easily answered in the office. And a lot of our international support services are all available in a central building on campus, which makes it easy. And we'll talk more about this in a future slide. And I could share a little bit more about OISSS then.
All right, fantastic. So if we want to go to the next slide. We'll talk a little bit more about that timeline. So I know that we get a ton of questions like this time of year, you know, what does the process look like? When can I start with the immigration process? Well, first you have to be admitted to your program. So, you know, start that application, get that application in. Once you receive your offer of admission and then you enroll in your program, that's when the process for your visa and immigration timeline really starts. So, you know, right now at this point in the year, the most important thing is that you're putting together a competitive application to your program. And then once you're admitted, you complete that enrollment form by the deadline listed in your admission letter. That being said, as far as, you know, getting the timeline started, earlier is better. So if you're admitted to your program, you know Brown is the place for you, I would highly encourage you to enroll, and so that we can get that ball kind of rolling as soon as possible. After that, you'll activate your Brown account and email. This is sort of a shockingly, this holds people up quite a bit in terms of like activating that account and email. We'll give you the steps that you need to be able to do this part of the process and work really closely with you to make sure that you know we'll email you so that you're aware of the steps that you need to take. And then once you activate your Brown account and email, you'll receive an email invitation to complete the financial certification process in the OISSS portal. So that will go back to sort of the immigration documents that you need, the materials that you need to upload, so that we can take those next steps to make sure that we're successful in getting you that visa. So if we want to go to the next slide, I'll hand it over to Andrew to talk a little bit more about Global Brown.
Fantastic. Hello, everyone. So wonderful to meet you. I know that this isn't necessarily a back and forth, but just know that I'm so excited to be here in this space with you all. As I said earlier, my name is Andrew Heald, and I am the director of the Global Brown Center for International Students. And on the next slide, I would love to share a little bit about what that is, what we do, and who we are on campus. So the Global Brown Center for International Students started on Brown's campus in 2017. So, about 7 years ago now, in response to international student need. International students told us on campus, we need a space that feels like home. We need a space that is dedicated for us, where we can have events and programs and come together in community. And that is how the GBC got started. So the Global Brown Center, and we have a couple of things that I'd like to talk about. The Globe, some graduate specific programming, and additional things that we do. So first is the Globe. We have a physical space called the Globe. It's right outside my office, and it serves as a 24 hours, 7 days a week lounge for our international student community, and that's inclusive of master's students. This is a space that's dedicated as our home away from home for international student communities. It is accessible via your ID card, and it has coffee, it has tea, it has people to relax with. It's a space to study, it's a space to gather, and it's a space to host events, which is my second bullet point about our center. We host graduate-specific programs. In this case, when I say programs, I mean events and resources for the graduate student community. One that comes to mind is our program called Well Connect. This is a program that aims to address the needs of international graduate students like yourselves. So thinking about, stress around careers, career opportunities, stress around building community on campus, needing to be able to come together and ask questions about how to navigate this place. Well Connect offers a series of programs that addresses all of those needs. A great example coming up is an international graduate student talent show, which I personally am very excited for. The other types of programs that we offer in the GBC that are for all students, including graduate students, are cultural programs that uplift and celebrate specific cultural communities, and events and holidays, and things like that, and community programs that bring the entire campus community together during times of stress, during times of need, and during times of joy and celebration. So if cultural is the specific, is the celebration of your own individual experience, community is the celebration of all of us in collective together. And lastly, we're a space of advocacy. So if you are confused about where to go, if you don't have an answer to a question, if you need some support as an international student on campus, maybe you had a difficult conversation with someone and you want to unpack it, or maybe you need to find a grocery store that has food that feels like home. All of those are reasons that you would come to us, start a conversation, and we would be able to advocate for you in various ways. So I hope that that gives a little bit of an introduction to what the GBC is, what our goals are, and how we support master's students here on Brown's campus. And I think the next slide is turning it over to one of my fabulous colleagues to talk about additional resources for international students at Brown. So I'll turn it over to June to talk about Global Brown.
Thank you so much, Andrew. So very much like what Andrew described, Global Brown was created to encompass all the staff and offices on campus that support international graduate students and all students and scholars, so that students do not need to bounce around and try to find what they need in a kind of wide campus. So as the program manager, I have the privilege of serving as a central contact. So if you have any questions about anything on campus, whether it's about wellness, whether it's about how to connect with the GBC, whether it's resources that you're interested in or that you need, rather than having to search all over, you can come to our office, contact me, and I'm always available. So where we have this umbrella, which we call Global Brown, within it are offices and staff, about 50 staff members across the university. And so we have the Office of Global Engagement, which is a part of that umbrella. And in this support, you're going to see connection to the international student experience, visa and compliance and immigration support through our Office of International Students and Scholar Services, health and wellness resources, and English language learning and writing support. So we do have, as a separate office in this umbrella, the Office of International Students and Scholar Services, which will be the office that provides your I-20 for you, that helps you stay in compliance if you're here on an F1 or a J1 visa, and answer all your questions and be a resource throughout the year. Another team and another office on campus is our English language learning at the Sheridan Center. And they provide a wide portfolio of supports, where there's English language learning, there's workshops, academic writing series, there's self-guided series, there's individual support, individual advising. They have fun programs like it's wildly popular on campus, the Conversation Partners program, which pairs international students with staff members on campus to work on English, and it's directed by the students. So it can be, you want to really focus on casual conversation or academic or professional or movies, and use it as a medium for working on your language. It's all up to the pairs, and we have like a waiting list for staff members to be paired with students. So it's something that everyone really looks forward to participating in. There's assessments, consultations on methodologies of writing, and a lot of self-studies, depending on your learning goals. So there's tutoring and workshops. So in addition to this, you'll have, I'd say, staff members that are across university, like in our foreign tax office. So our master's students and graduate level students, whether you're earning income or you have investments or you have things that are taxed in the US tax system. I manage the tax filing resources for all the international students and scholars on campus. So Brown provides a wonderful array of resources. We have free software for you to fill out your tax returns. We have free consultations with specialists if you have any questions. And that's something that we're very closely in touch with you throughout that process, so that we recognize that master's level students have sometimes more complicated tax profiles, and we're there to support you. So we look forward to that period of the year. It may not be the most fun for the student end, but it's actually fun to meet with everybody and work through it. And it seems to be something that we get a lot of engagement on. So I think that kind of encompasses the general overview of Global Brown. And but if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer in the Q&A. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, June. Definitely keep those questions coming. If we want to go to the next slide, I want to talk a little bit more about the resources that we have specifically for master's students on Brown's campus. One of the things that really sets Brown apart from, I think, other institutions is that we have these master's specific resources. So you know that you'll be well taken care of while you're on campus. So if we want to go to the next slide, one of those resources that I think is so crucial for our master's students is career support and professional development. You're only with us for a short period of time, in some cases a year, depending on your program. So we totally understand, as the Division of Master's in Professional programs, that you really need to hit the ground running when it comes to career and professional development support. So we have dedicated career advisors specifically for our master's students who coordinate programming with the departments, with individual students, with our centers on campus to really share their expertise and help you understand sort of what is a best fit career for you and how you can find gainful employment after graduation. So they'll do things like mock interviews, individual advising, and then once you have that job, work with you on negotiating a package. At Brown, we're really all about layers of support. You see on this call, you have a ton of different people who are interested in helping you. Career is no different. So beyond the support that we have through the Division of Masters and professional programs, there's also career fairs that are run by our career lab. There's job and internship opportunities that are offered through Handshake. We have a really extensive alumni base. One of the things that we're really grateful for at Brown is to have really wonderful and generous alumni that you can be in contact with. And then of course your department, the programs that you are applying to and enrolling in, those folks are really experts in their field. So you can rely on them as well. So those are sort of the different layers of support that we offer at Brown in terms of career development. I definitely encourage you to check out what we offer on our website if you want to learn more or to email us. We also have some specific sessions on career support, professional development, and student life at Brown. So I'll plug those as well, and we'll put the link to register for those in the chat in a little bit. So if we want to go to the next slide. One of the other layers of support that we offer our master's students is academic and student support. So we also have dedicated staff available to help students in times of need. So we have the support offered through Global Brown, through the Office of International Student Scholar Services, but then also within the Division of Masters and Professional Programs, we have dedicated folks who are there to help you. We have the Center for Master's Student Excellence, which is where our career services and academic counseling live. But then we also have support through other offices such as the Sheridan Center for Teaching and Learning. If you need English language support, tutoring, we have a writing center. And then if you're ever in a time of need, you need emergency funding for a one-time expense, anything that comes up, we also have support services for while you're here to make sure that you feel, welcome and like you have everything you need, and as much as we can provide that. So if we want to go to the next slide. This is an overview of the different centers and offices on Brown's campus that are spaces for students to be able to gather, as well as folks who are there to support our students during their time at Brown. So our folks in the Division of Master's Programs, Master's and Professional Programs, work really closely with these different centers and offices to provide services such as, career support that's tailored to these different offices and centers. So we're really closely engaged with all of these different areas. Just another layer of support, like I was talking about earlier, that's available to our students. Sharanya, you're on the call and you work really closely with our grad student council. So I'm curious to hear sort of your perspective on how master's students interact with these different centers and offices at Brown.
Of course, thank you so much, Victoria. So I think Brown does a really good job at making you feel welcome and telling you about what resources are available for you. So I would definitely recommend when you get here, subscribe to all newsletters and all listservs that we have for graduate students, because all of these different centers hold a lot of community building events. So Brown Center for Students of Color does like an orientation event, a mid-semester event. They would have something before the exams, and they would always have free food. So I would usually always go for free food, but I would also meet like awesome people there. Most of my friends I met at these events. The LGBTQ Center does a lot of, so there's two centers side by side. There's the LGBTQ Center and the Sarah Doyle Center for Women and Gender. They do a lot of combined events, which have like games and food, and you meet new people. I think that's a really good way of just getting to know what resources are available for you. And we, at the Division of Masters and Professional Programs, we hold a lot of community building events and professional development events that would help you just navigate your way through your master's program and for your future also. Other than that, I think it's also when you just come here, you also try to like find what places there to like study. I used to love going to the LGBTQ center to study because it's a very, very cozy environment. We have a lot of libraries that have separate spaces for grad students. You can book like little cubicles to have group discussions for homeworks with your friends. So I think there's a lot of space available for graduate students, and you just need to know where to look. So yeah, this is a very good it's a very good place to be, I would say.
Thank you so much. So actually on the next slide, we talk a little bit more about community building on campus. So I think that that's perfect, sort of your explanation of those slides, Sharanya, because building community is a crucial part of like your success in your master's program, and building community outside of your academic home department, we think is a really crucial part of your success at Brown. So we really encourage you to attend those events, get on those listservs, like Sharanya was saying, get involved in graduate student council. There's this idea that master's students and graduate students aren't involved in like activities and in campus life. And I think at Brown, that's definitely not the case. We have a really robust orientation. We have orientation for different identities as well. I would definitely encourage you to check out events at Brown if you want to see sort of like what a day in the life of a Brown student might be. And then get on that graduate student listserv once you're here, and that'll really help you navigate the different spaces, the different opportunities and events that you might have to start building that community and building that network, so that you can sort of move through your program with a really supportive community of folks to help you out. Sharanya, orientation, I know like our office is really involved in orientation. You attended orientation and you've attended events at Brown. You want to talk a little bit more about maybe some experiences that you've had from orientation through now you're a second year master's student, some events that you've attended?
Yes, of course. So I think for me, one of the reasons that I didn't feel like very homesick, like I've never lived away from my family. This was my first time, and I moved across the world. So it was expected, everybody was expecting me to have a really hard time. But I think it was, it was m- much, it was not that difficult because Brown was providing me all the resources that I could possibly need to navigate this time. So I think Brown does a really good job at just keeping you busy when you get here so that you don't feel like you don't have people. You meet so many new people, you meet people from different backgrounds than you meet people from similar walks of life, from similar upbringing as you. So it's a very good time to make connections and meet new people. And orientation is also where it can seem like a bit of like an information overload, but trust me, it is the most helpful thing, and you will not forget anything. Brown also does a really good job at like making sure that nothing is missed. So during orientation, you will have campus tours. So you will essentially be told like, oh, these are the places, you could go to study. These are the places where like all important locations on campus. You will also have international student specific orientation, and you will also have like department specific orientation. So you will basically be equipped with everything that you will need to successfully complete your master's. And I also worked as a graduate student at the orientation. So I could also, it was like being on the other side of the table. So, and it's a week-long orientation, especially for like international students. It's like 3-4 days extra. So you will get to know about who to contact to if you have questions about like your STEM OPT or CPT, who to reach out to if you're having any issues with your visa, all advocacy issues, if you're having trouble having some difficult conversations with like your advisor. So they basically tell you everything that you would and could need during your master's program here. And you also get a lot of help if you want to like, the career services does a really good job at having like resume build up. So if you want to like just as Victoria said, if you want to hit the ground running, they have career fairs happening, they have resume pop-ups happening. And if you want to go into more like an academic route, they have a lot of panels where current PhD students share their experience. A lot of people who have been placed in the industry after doing their PhD here also come and talk. So it's just a lot of it's very helpful to talk to these people because it helps you like decide what you want to do during and after your graduate studies here.
Thank you so much, Shania. That's so helpful to give a great picture of sort of the types of community you can build while you're at Brown. So if we want to go to the next slide. I want to talk a little bit more about student groups and advocacy, and starting with Graduate Student Council, which is sort of the overarching body of students that, yes, they put on a lot of really great events. They support students in a lot of different ways, but they also are fundamentally an advocacy body for our graduate students on campus. And Sharanya, you're deeply involved in Graduate Student Council, so I'd love to hear your perspective on your role as the international student advocate.
Yes, of course. So, as the chair of international advocacy, my main role is to make sure that in a place that might seem very new and very foreign, you never feel like your voice doesn't matter or your voice isn't heard. So, we hold a lot of events with a wide range of organizations at Brown that would be very helpful for you, ranging from like more visa specific, like Office of International Student Scholar Services, OISSS, or something more like mental health related, because there are a plethora of issues that you face when you come to a new country. So we have CAPS, which is counseling and psychological services, where they provide a lot of like therapy options, and they help you through like if you're having any trouble adjusting to a new place. So we hold a lot of these events that tell you, one, what resources there are, and two, who to reach out to. Like a lot of times, even if you're having trouble, you just don't know who to reach out to. So GSE is also about just being like the middle point where you can literally just go and say that I'm having this problem and I don't know what to do, and we will guide you through it. And as Victoria said, it's a very good bridge, I would say, between the university, the admin, and the students. So we have a lot of different positions apart from like the president and vice president. I'm the international chair. We have a master's advocacy chair separate. So if you think that you're having some trouble specifically related to your master's degree, you need help with that, we have chair for that. We obviously also have like social events chair. We have a treasurer, but then we also work separately with students who are having issues with like their stipend, or if they're not getting paid enough or they're not getting timely payments, and especially during the transition, because we're trying to work on like the first payment that PhD students receive when they come to Brown, because it's slightly later than the payments, or like there's something different with like the domestic students. So we're currently trying to help them with that transition so that they don't have to spend too much of their own savings before receiving their first stipend. So this is just an example of something that we do. So maybe you have a unique problem, or like you have something specific to your situation, we will be there to help you with it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That's such important work that you and the whole group do for our master's and PhD students. So we want to go to the next slide. This is just sort of a smattering of some events that we've hosted in the past that our student affairs team has hosted alongside departments, solo, things like that. They really run the gamut. We're always trying to come up with some creative events. Sharanya, what kind of events are you folks planning for the upcoming semester? Anything fun?
Yeah, so for like community building, we have like a build your own salad bowl. We have a yoga sound bath, acupressure, acupuncture kind of an event coming up. And for more of like the professional development, we have a STEM students networking event where we'll have professors who are taking on students, both masters and PhD, for like rotation and thesis. So if you're thinking of doing a thesis route for your masters, you can just come to the event and ask professors what they work on, if they are planning on taking any new students, or just to network with other students in your cohort or outside of your cohort. Because I know a lot of students who like come in as say like CS students, but they take on projects and research projects with professors in the data science department. So that's also, if you're planning on doing something more collaborative or like interdisciplinary, we have a lot of events coming up where you can just like explore what opportunities are out there for you. So yeah, other than that, we have Halloween social coming up with the GSC. So you'll see a very good balance between like the fun party, community building events, and professional development events here. So yeah, that's where we try to like find the right balance.
Definitely. You're a person outside of the classroom as well. We want to make sure that we honor that. So we want to go to the next slide. We're going to talk a little bit more about living in Providence, knowing that some of you folks have probably never been to Providence before, or maybe not even have been to New England before. So if you want to go to the next slide, I want to talk a little bit about housing. So this is probably the most stressful part of any move, and starting any program is really finding housing. So we have a couple of different ways that we can help you find housing and give you sort of housing at Brown that's affiliated with Brown University. So the first part is Brown-owned housing. So these are apartments that Brown owns that are available for students to rent. Most of the housing is centered around the College Hill area, which is where Brown has the largest footprint, although Brown's footprint through Providence is very large, down into some other areas and other neighborhoods. That being said, you can see the price ranges per person on the screen. This is sort of an average from last year, so these are subject to change, but suffice it to say, housing that's affiliated with Brown is very limited. So when we talk about starting early, we talk about getting that visa started early, we talk about enrolling early, especially for an international student. I would encourage you to start this process of finding housing early. And if we go to the next slide, we'll talk a little bit more about getting around Providence. So, you can see sort of a map of where our buses run through Providence. We have a couple of different ways you can get around, but we're thinking about like finding housing. I would definitely pay attention to the Brown University bus shuttle, the Rhode Island Public Transportation Authority buses. Where are those running? Where can you live off of that line that you can easily get to campus for your classes? So we have free ridership on our RIPTA buses through our Brown IDs. We have a shuttle that runs through campus, Lyft, Uber. There's a lot of different ways to get around Providence and the sort of the greater Rhode Island area. If you're looking to go further afield, we have an airport in Providence, or outside of Providence, TF Green. It's a regional airport. It goes to a lot of different places. The larger airport for the region is Logan Airport, which is in Boston, which is about an hour and a half away. So not super hard to get to. I would say that if you're going to fly somewhere within the United States, TF Green is a really nice airport to fly in and out of, really easily accessible from campus. But if you are going to Logan, we also are able to take the train from Providence to Boston fairly easily as well. So if you want to go to the next slide. All right, I want to answer some questions. So anything having to do with housing, getting around campus, services that we offer. We have Sharanya, a second-year master's student who is a wealth of knowledge, as well as our wonderful colleagues from across Brown. So we definitely want to start answering these questions. I know my colleagues have been answering some throughout. We have one to answer live right now, which is about the English language proficiency requirement. Oh, thank you so much. This is our contact information for folks if they want to copy that down. We'll also put it in the chat. So the question about the TOEFL is for a student who is living in a country where the official language is English and the degrees are taught in English, but that country is not necessarily the United States, do you still need to take the TOEFL or the IELTS? And the answer is no, you don't need to take the TOEFL or the IELTS. If you are a native English language speaker and or you have a degree from an institution where the sole language of instruction is English, you do not need to take the TOEFL or the IELTS. The TOEFL, IELTS, English language proficiency exams, they are not tied to citizenship, they're tied to English language fluency. So if you indicate that you're a native English speaker, then you would not be required to take those exams. And if you indicate that your institution, the sole language of instruction is English, then you would not be required to take those exams. Sharanya, I would love to hear from you sort of what do you feel like the most difficult part of transitioning into our master's program at Brown was? So go ahead, yeah.
I think coming from so I studied in Delhi in India, and at my university professors don't have like their own research labs that they do. I know a lot of institutions at India do, but mine didn't. So for me, I had never done like formal research with a lab. So it was very difficult for me to understand how you have that first conversation with your professor. Also, I know that in the US, you refer to your professor very first name basis, which was also very weird because in India, we either call them like sir, ma'am, or we just say professor. So I think for me, the initial was just like the relationship between the student and the teacher was just a weird thing to navigate, and how to talk to them about research or like getting started with research. And what helped was just talking to my seniors who had been in the same position that I had not too many years ago. And the answer is just like, you just talk to them. You literally just go and you tell them what you're interested in, why you want to do this. This also applies to anything that you want to do, not just research. If you want to um do a summer project with the professor, you literally just go and talk to them and tell them that I looked at your work and I have done something along the lines similar during my undergrad or previous studies. Would you be open to just me sitting in a research group meeting? And they would never say no. They're always open to talking about their research. They're always open to students who are passionate and want to learn more. So I think that transition was the most difficult for me.
Thank you. Does Brown provide mentors for students to help them adapt to the new environment in graduate studies? Or is anybody aware of a mentorship program that we have?
I know, sorry.
Oh, no, I was just gonna speak a little bit about orientation and the inclusion of peer mentors within the orientation process. Shania, I don't know if was that what you were gonna speak to as well?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, but you can go ahead. I will add if I have anything to.
Yeah, absolutely. So during the international orientation for graduate students, you will have the opportunity to meet with peer mentors. There's a couple of different opportunities throughout orientation to engage with them, but largely on one of the main introductory days, there's a lunch with a peer mentor, and that's a space to get connected. That's a space to ask questions, and it's a space to establish a longer relationship. Some peer mentors would love to be able to communicate with you across the academic year. And so that's the one thing that came to mind in terms of peer mentorship. Additionally, whether it's the Global Brown Center or whether it's one of the other many identity spaces that were discussed earlier, the Brown Center for Students of Color, the LGBTQ plus Center, et cetera, all have some form of peer student leadership. So whatever the need that you have is, whatever experience you're hoping to embody on campus, there will be peers who are doing this work within these spaces in order to support you and build those connections.
I would also like to add, there is a chance that your department also has kind of a mentor-mentee program. So my department does have mentor-mentee programs where basically second year master students and second year onwards PhD students can sign up to be mentors for incoming students. So you might want to get to know if your department does something like that. And if your department, even if they don't, you can suggest it and they might start it. It's very common for departments to be doing something like that because the seniors were in the position that you are in a few years ago, and everybody is more than happy to help you out. So.
Righty. One question we get quite a bit that didn't get asked today, but I'm going to ask it anyways because I get asked in every session, how to prepare for the weather. I think that there's this idea that all of New England is a tundra and it's cold all the time. So I'm going to go ahead and get ahead of that question. We do have another session tomorrow about Providence specifically, which is where I usually get asked that question. But yeah, I think I want to get ahead of that a little bit and talk about sort of like the region and, what there is to love about New England. One thing to specifically love about Southern New England is that it does stay actually pretty mild compared to our northern friends up in like Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont. So while you'll definitely need like a good pair of boots, a good winter jacket in the winter, it isn't a situation where it's usually, like below freezing every day, snowing 5 feet or anything like that. It does stay pretty mild by the water. Rhode Island is really is really accessible to the ocean, which keeps us a little bit warmer.
I would jump in on that. A good rule of thumb for New England, I think, is to wear layers or have layers because you might be warm one minute and then cold the next. And if you have layers, it's really an easy way to be warm and adapt because it's always changing. So layers are good, and hats and gloves keep the heat in. So and a scarf, and you can do a lot with that. So I think some years we always expect or hope that it's going to snow, and some years there's no snow, but then some years there's so much snow. So it's kind of like it's really beautiful when it happens, but it's so much fun if you're warm. So like a few layers and you'll feel fantastic.
The thing about New Englanders is we stay active in the winter, and I really think that that makes all the difference because we're
Mhm.
used to it. We know, put the boots on, we're still going, we're doing our thing, we're skiing, we're hiking, even when it gets a little bit colder. Maybe not me, but others definitely are.
It's really true.
Yeah, also central heating. Like I've never had central heating back home. So you would only be cold between point A and point B because any building you get into, your house and all of Brown will be centrally heated. So you need to have, like June said, you need to have those layers because I made the mistake of having my warmest layer under my jacket, and I got to my class and I was just sweating for an hour because I didn't have like a half sleeves that I could just like remove. So yeah, that is definitely also the School of Professional Studies, or the Division of Masters program, we have an emergency gap fund which we call an EGAP fund that you can basically apply for if you don't think you can afford winter clothing, because they can be a little expensive. So if you do happen to buy something warm, you can apply for the EGAP fund and you will basically get reimbursed for the money that you spend on those warm clothes. So that's also a very good resource.
Fantastic. That's a very good tip. All right, I think that's it for questions. If you have any last ones. There's some questions about the recordings of sessions that we've already done. We will send those out when they're available. There's a delay. We're having an issue with our YouTube account, candidly. So we'll get those out as soon as we can. Once we can get those uploaded onto YouTube, we'll email those out to you folks who've registered for those sessions. So thank you for that, including this one, of course. As far as upcoming sessions, I do want to drop a link to our upcoming sessions if you want to register. We have another one tomorrow that'll be really fun. We're going to talk more in depth about housing, Providence, things like that. So definitely please feel free to join us for any of those sessions and any sessions that are specific to your programs, because we're going to cover a lot more of those in-depth program details in the program specific information sessions. So fantastic. Well, to my panelists, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. You guys have been really wonderful, and we'll see you next time. See you later, guys.